Thank you. Hi, guys. So I'm not going to stand here and pretend that today is in any way normal, or that I got any sleep last night, or that these bags under my eyes aren't from tears that were shed. But I find myself in the unique situation of having a platform in front of some people who may be feeling pretty down. And so I'd like to use the time to give you a couple of seeds of hope about how we can go about changing antiquated systems and old thought systems that people may have. What if I told you that everything you've learned about success is a lie? That the siren song of a fat paycheck, a beach house, and a fancy car is just a distraction, keeping you from a truth that's hiding from you in plain sight. And that by realizing this elusive obvious, you could spend your time, your precious finite time on this earth, doing something that was aligned with what you're good at and offered financial sustainability, and also offered meaning, purpose, and impact, rather than chasing after a vague dream of success that was defined by and for someone else. But in order to share that secret with you, I first want to start with a story that begins in 1986 in a small upstate New York town nestled between the Catskills and the Berkshire Mountains. On one side of this David and Goliath tale is the New York State education system. On the other, a 3.5-foot, 40-pound soaking wet, 6-year-old child. The point of contention? An arbitrary attendance policy that threatened disciplinary action for missing anything more than a couple of weeks of school each year. The first signs of the resistance became evident when the young child decided to view the attendance rules as guidelines. She began to miss some school. And while report card after report card praised her academic performance, it also threatened corrective action if her attendance didn't improve. The girl and her parents thought this was a little bit of an overreaction. What harm is missing 30 days of 4th grade anyway? Do you remember 4th grade? What they didn't realize is that they were up against something much bigger than that simple rule. They were facing an antiquated, monopolistic system that seeks to productize people, giving them standard components and uniform experiences. And so they began this battle, and throughout the years, it was clear that neither side was willing to move an inch. You see, we don't realize how strange it is that every day we go to the same place, at the same time, with the same people, to learn the same things from the same teacher. We are taught to depend on someone else to tell us what to do, how to do it, how well we did, and what to do next. And whether we recognize it or not, we leave that system believing that success is a single thing that can be judged based on a set of extrinsic rewards doled out by someone else. And perhaps worse, we don't realize that this is something that's the result of our training and programming rather than a natural or necessary state of affairs. In case it isn't perfectly clear, the most likely to be absent from school was me. And in the fall of 1993, after missing the first 2 weeks of 8th grade, I finally convinced my parents to let me secede from the system and self-manage my education. It was at that point that I began to realize the elusive obvious, that success is something that should be individually defined and intrinsically motivated. How do you go about doing something like that? You've spent all of these years in a system where grades, teachers' approval, and degrees have led you down this path to success. In the absence of it, most of us don't know where to go. So we look to our left and our right, we look at our neighbors, and we look at how we compare in order to determine whether we're successful or not. We put happiness on the back burner, thinking, I'll have that when I simply achieve that next milestone, forgetting that it wasn't so long ago that we looked at where we stand right now and thought, if I could just get there, I would be happy. But that's the problem with extrinsic goalposts. They're constantly moving. No matter what you get, you want something more. It's simply never enough. How many times today have you asked or answered the MVP of all questions? What do you do? You could probably answer this question in your sleep with a combination of your title, your role, your company, your industry. What about instead if I said, why do you do what you do? Who do you do what you do for? What is your purpose? I imagine that most of you would have a little bit more difficult time answering that question. So how do we go about getting off of this hamster wheel? Well, the Japanese have a concept called Ikigai. It essentially translates to your reason for being, your life purpose. It's generally talked about in terms of 4 elements: that which you love, that which you're good at, that which the world needs, and that which you can be paid for. I also like to think of a 5th element, which is that which you're capable of doing with people who inspire you. But the general idea is that if you are able to combine the things that you're interested and passionate about with the things that you're good at, market demand, and the impact you want to leave on the world, you can begin finding your unique purpose for being. It's not an easy path, figuring out your Ikigai. It requires that you dig into some parts of yourself that you've maybe hidden safely away because they're uncomfortable. It requires digging into things like, what am I not so good at? What makes me angry? What am I afraid of? And as you do so, you start to look at aspects of yourself that make you a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that rather than following this current zeitgeist of if you spend enough time doing anything, you can become an expert at it, I prefer to look at it as, rather than spending a life in perpetual mediocrity trying to chase after someone who has a specific skill or ability that doesn't come naturally to you, you can instead maximize your impact on the world by focusing on the things that make you unique. Among them, the hardships that you've faced and obstacles that you've overcome, and the things that you're capable of doing because of that. So with this information, I started to try to map out my own Ikigai. I thought about the things that I had done that were successful in my career, the things I had been paid for, things like innovation, public speaking, consulting. I thought about the things that I love to do, but may not make a lot of money doing, like writing, meditation. I thought about the people in my life who had inspired me, the ones that I had worked with. My investor, dear friend, and tiger mom, Tony Hsieh, whose personal ethos is to be unapologetically yourself. And my former boss, Peter Diamandis, who is uniquely able to take an idea that is surrounded by disbelief and transform it into something that people thought never would be possible. Finally, I thought about what the world needed. Things like a female president, legal weed, if Black Lives Matter, but mostly about if people didn't have to put on that mask every day to go to work, shedding themselves of any sort of individuality in favor of a corporate persona because they thought that that's how they were going to climb the ladder most quickly. With that information, I started my latest company, Your Higher Self, which is really built on creating retreats and workshops for people to dive into this very thing. And so I hope you leave today's session with realization of the elusive obvious, that your kids can miss a month of 4th grade and still end up on stage at Inbound. And also that success can and should only be defined at an individual level, using intrinsic motivation as the guide. And while I'm an entrepreneur, you also can do this in your daily life, in your daily career. You can start by thinking about how to inject just a little bit more soul into that sale. Many of you are in sales and marketing. How can you, on a daily basis, think about your higher self that you would like to be, that you strive to be, and how you can bring that to work every day? Release your golden handcuffs, challenge the sacred cows that we have around work, and start thinking about your unique reason for being, that which you love, that which you're good at, that which you can be paid for, and that which the world needs. Thank you.